Good afternoon, everybody. In our last class, we discussed about democracy versus economic growth. Now, in the present class, we will discuss about liberty versus censorship. Liberty means freedom. Freedom is regarded by many as the preeminent political value, and from the very beginning, both men and state have been making efforts for the security of their share of freedom. Freedom is an essential condition without which neither state nor individual can make any progress. So, history is full of records where a tussle can be witnessed between individuals and the state to ensure and widen their share of freedom. Almost everyone seems to argue that liberty of the individual is important and legal protection should be provided by state for all-round development. But at the same time, there is a wide contention among individuals, among political scientists, lawyers, political leaders, and citizens about the meaning of the concept of liberty itself and how much of liberty is acceptable in an ordered state. The state regards censorship as a tool to protect the interest and, in some cases, dignity of the individual from misleading, false, and tried or hate speech, as it is believed that reasonable restrictions are important for the maintenance of social order in a democracy. Although there are scholars who argue that censorship has been evolved by the state to hamper individual freedom and is used by it for the maintenance of power. Censorship is found in various degrees in all political cultures, and its source can be political, social, legal, and cultural as well. In this unit, we understand certain complicated questions like the limitation on speech, on like limitation on freedom of speech and expression indispensable in a democracy society. To what extent should the freedom of speech and expression be regarded to reasonable? And who will decide what is reasonable? We will also attempt to understand under what circumstances censorship can be justified and whether it also leads to situation of conflict of interest. How much power does the state legitimately hold to use censorship in order to act in public good? And how to distinguish between those restrictions which used for repressive purposes and those which are legally acceptable. At the end, we would also discuss over the course of actions to be adopted by individual against the state in case of repressive usages of censorship resulting in violation of rights. So now, what is the meaning of liberty? Meaning of liberty. The concept of liberty is complex and has acquired different meaning at different times. It is often used interchangeably with the term freedom, and both are regarded as synonymous with each other. Although there are some scholars who draw a distinction between freedom and liberty, arguing that the latter means liberty denotes political or legal freedom, whereas freedom, the former, encompasses a broader range of activities within the ambit of individual's ability to act according to his or her own wish without any type of external pressure. In this unit, the differences between the two has not been discussed and the two have been used interchangeably. So the term liberty has been derived from the Latin word liber, which means absence of all restraint or restrictions. In this sense, liberty means one has the rights to exercise his choice without being subject to any type of the external constraint or restriction. G.D.H. Cole, one political philosopher, he rightly explains the concept of liberty as the freedom of individual to express without external hindrances to personality. Although in an ordered society, absolute liberty cannot exist, as McCusin argues that freedom is not the absence of all restraint, but rather the substitutions of rational ones for the irrational. Mahatma Gandhi has also given a similar definition of the liberty, and according to Mahatma Gandhi, liberty does not mean the absence of restraint, but it lies in the development of personalities. So, freedom is argued by Gerald McCollum, all ways of something, from something to do, not to become or not become something. Thus, the above all definitions makes it clear that liberty is freedom with certain limitations. But the question arises, what is the source of all this restriction, barriers, and is there no scope of the absolute liberty for the individual in any dilemma? From this answer, Sir Isaac Berlin, in his famous essay, The True Concept of Liberty, in this book, he made a distinction between positive liberty and negative liberty on the basics of the role of state. Negative liberty implies freedom from undue interferences of the state. Freedom from undue interferences of the state. It implies in an area in which the individual is free to do what he or she likes without being obstructed by others. The individual is free to do. Okay, the negative concept of liberty in Berlin's word is involved in the answer to the question, what is the area within which the subject, a person or group of persons, is or should be left to do or be what he is able to do or be without interference by other persons. But positive liberty, according to Berlin, attempts to answer the question, what or who is the source of control or interference that can determine someone to do or be in this rather than that. Thus, positive liberty implies freedom from rational self. Rousseau and other idealistic believe that man is a rational and individual freedom is achieved through participation in the process whereby one's community exercise collective control over its own affairs. In accordance with the general will, which is a synthesis of good will of all the people of that community. So, positive liberty is about being in control of one's life. So, negative liberty is about being left one, whereas positive liberty is about the freedom of individual to develop his or her personality. So, positive liberty of the state should create enabling conditions. It creates enabling conditions, suitable conditions for capacity enhancement, moral development, and self realization. So, early liberalism is associated with the philosophy of individualism. The belief was that the fight against orthodoxy, ignorance, and feudalism would be taken forward by individual initiative. It was based on the assumption of an autonomous and rational individual. It argued for the absence of restriction on individual freedom at the political level, or it argued for restriction or arbitrary state authority. In economics aspect, negative liberty implies the philosophy of laissez-faire. At the personal level, it sought liberty from the state and society in individual matter. Thomas Hobbes defines liberty as dependent on silence of law. When there is silence of law, then the people are in a position to enjoy liberty. Milton Friedman, in his book Capitalism and Freedom, argues that liberty is the absence of the coercion of man by his fellow man. Now we will discuss about J. Smith's concept of liberty. J.S. Mill, in his writings on liberty, which was written in the year 1859, is regarded as a landmark publication in the discussions of the political freedom. To Mill, the development of the individual is impossible without liberty, and goes on to argue that it is necessary for the happiness of the society as well. Liberty is necessary for the happiness of the people. He believes that restraint is an evil, restriction is an evil, and the individual should be left to oneself. The individual should be free to whatever he wants to do. Mill's argument on liberty can be classified into two categories, that is freedom of thought and expression and freedom of action. Mill believes in absolute liberty in case of the freedom of thought and expression. Mill proposed that individuals should enjoy the greatest possible realm of the freedom, but also recognize the unrestrained liberty may create probability of oppression and results in tyrannical behavior. Thus, Mill divides all human actions into two categories, namely self-regarding actions and other regarding actions. Self-regarding actions are those which concern only the individual performing actions for them, and there should be no intervention on this realm, and interference with the individual's liberty of action is justified only to prevent him from harming others. That is in case of others regarding action. In effect, the harm principle ensures individuals' duty towards society. So, thus it can be understood that although Mills provides absolute liberty, means this Mill concept of liberty is absolute liberty in case of the freedom of speech and expression only. In case of the freedom of speech and expression. At the same time, he is also supporting certain limitations on the actions taken by the individual to maintain order in the society. For maintenance of the law and order in the society, he put some limitations also. Here comes the concept of censorship, as this limitation further take the shape of various kind of censorship to maintain law and order in society. So what is this censorship? Page number 136. The origin of the term censorship can be traced to the office of censor established in Rome in 443 BC to regulate morals and ritually purifying the people. From this office derives the modern use of term censorship to denote the practice of examining, restricting, prohibiting public arts, expression of opinion, and artistic performance. So, censorship is today generally regarded as the reliance of unenlightened and much more oppressive age. The suppression or control of the ideas, public communications, and information circulated within a society is termed as censorship. Censorship in art and architecture, censorship in mass media, all these are we have heard. Ritu Menon argues censorship is when a work of art expressing an idea which does not fall under current convention insists, withdrawn, impound, ignored, or otherwise made inaccessible to its audience. So censorship is a tool which is used either by state or society for the maintenance of power, achieved through manipulation of cultural sphere. Cultural realms plays an important role in deciding what is acceptable in society. A cultural hegemony declares some words or acts to be decent and others indecent, and goes on to control its meaning and thought. Apart from cultural understanding, there can be various other sources of censorship like religion, a dictatorship, and the market as well. Censorship can be first staged under religious leadership. Initially, all art and literary work were heavily influenced by religious thought, and good and acceptable was associated with those works which would appreciate the existing status quo, while those questioning used to be regarded as blasphemous and irrational. The Glorious Revolutions and the France Revolution marked a new era in history as people started demanding ideas like liberty, equality, and a role in the decision-making process. The shift from the religious to temporal power was differently in different cultures. The world witnesses the rise of Nazism in Germany and fascism in Italy due to a high concentration of the power, resulting in the horrific Second World War. This results the Second World War. Hitler and the Mussolini used the endangered language to have control over the minds of the people and curbed all forms of the expression which might question their authority and legitimacy. Further, the Soviet Union during the period of the Stalin was severely criticized for using censorship over art, literature, movies, and other media of communication. Language under the dictators did not just remain a medium of expression. Rather, the state used it to define phases of approbation and disapproval, which have to be accepted by all. Such supervision in the light of the official Communist Party doctrine was not limited to the political discussions or to books and newspapers, but seems to over all kinds of subjects and all forms of publication, including broadcast. This led in the efforts of the considerable self-censorship by authors seeking to be published in some form. The advance of the government policy of the glasnost during the time of the Mikhail Gorbachev, and glasnost means openness. In the late 1980s, involved some relaxation of the censorship that marked the greater part of the Soviet history, and all these marked the greater parts of the Soviet history. The advance of the new liberal policy changed the structure of world affairs. The term like privatization, liberalization came in voice, pressurizing the countries to accept the marginal idea, that is the magical idea of free market economy. The concept of the free market economy concept entered in the global economy. The market-driven economics loaded by all these advertisement. They have to advertise their policies for their family started increasing not only the purchasing power and need of the people, but also modeling and remodeling the political opinions of citizens. Thus, all the above views shows how censorship has always been used in various forms throughout history to control the minds of people and to maintain hegemonic power and gain hegemony for their acts and policies by authorities under the grave of maintaining order in society. Now, the relationship between liberty and censorship. What is the relationship between liberty and censorship? Page number 137. The existence of a free society depends upon communication among various groups, free flow of information and space for continuous debate and criticisms, as it allows the horizons of knowledge to expand and reinvent the existing truth. In a democracy, the citizen consent is indispensable or grant legitimacy to the government action, which is possible only with the existence of act of liberty structured on free speech and expression. This argument becomes the foundation of the ruling of the Supreme Court of India in case of the Raj Narayan versus State of Uttar Pradesh in year 1976. Thus, the right to information is a part of fundamental rights under Article 19 clause 1. It also suggests the importance of the freedom which should be given by a state to the fourth pillar of democracy, that is the press. The press is the fourth pillar of democracy. The right to information enriched through freedom of speech enables the citizens to hear all sides of an argument and then formulate their free opinion over a subject and participate in the decision making process in an unbiased manner. The state over a period of time, through various mechanisms of censorship, tries to halt the free flow of communications. The continuous tussles between the state and citizens over liberty can be understood, starting from Thomas Hobbes to John Locke. Hobbes argues that in turn of the protection from the state, the citizen must surrender or his or her rights, according to Thomas Hobbes. So he supported the construction of a strong state, a huge set of the rights justifying certain restrictions from the state over citizens to maintain law and order in society. But John Locke, being a true liberal, argues that the state was merely to act as an arbiter and oversee the public and private transactions of individual citizens. Locke defended the liberal position of citizens in a state securing freedom of individual. But J. Mill argued against censorship, suggesting that human knowledge advances through exposing opinion to refutations so that the distinction between the truth and error can be clearly seen. So censorship interferences with that process by arbitrarily declaring the advances that this or that opinion is erroneous or forbidden. Censorship therefore has an inherent tendency to marginalize truth and pursue sub-truth and to put conformity in their place. Karl Popper, he warned against any kind of the regulation and argued in his books The Open Society and Enemies. This book was written in 1945 that any attempt to plan or regulate society would result in a reduction of human freedom. He further points out that human knowledge grows change with time. He points out that human knowledge grows and changes with the change of time and effects from social events. Thus, he Thus, the future is made by free individuals who have access to open society. Open society is necessary for individuals for their own advancement. A similar pattern of thought can be found in the works of the Isaac Berlin, who argues that an enlightened despotism inevitably leads to the state monism and hence is one of the most powerful and dangerous arguments in the entire history of the human thought. Totalitarianism has been linked with restriction on liberty by Hannah Arendt, who explains the automation of society as an essential feature of totalitarianism, where every immediate association like family, friendship, trade union, religion, etc., was either destroyed or taken under control by a state. The state, through its perpetual presence in all forms of governance and systematic use of terror, sought to create isolated individuals who were absolutely loyal to the state. The state repression on theory of Louis Althusser is equally important to understand as he differentiates between the repressive and ideological apparatus of the state. He explained that the ideological apparatus belongs to the private domain of society like family, education, religion, media, etc., which construct dominant ideology of society through control over information. The censorship is not carried out by individual or class, but it is a process carried unconsciously by private domain itself in which it is inherent. Thus, it can be concluded from the above argument that censorship is not always used directly by the state to maintain its power, but at times it can be used through culture, society, media, religion, education, etc. to create a dominant ideology. But the question arises how the state justifies the existence of censorship. Article 19 of the Indian Constitution guarantees freedom like those of speech and expression, freedom of assembly, movement, settlement, profession, etc. But these rights, although all are fundamental in character and are not absolute in nature and are subject to reasonable restrictions. These restrictions can be imposed on the ground of protection of sovereignty, integrity, and security of the country against defamation, protection of decency and morality, etc. Thus, the concept of absolute liberty enters trouble water the moment it is related with morality, decency, or in easy term hate speech. Hate speech can be understood as that speech which is which is directed at certain people or communities with the intent to cause harm by asserting their natural inferiority, or speech that by its nature asserts the dominations of one group of people over another group. Now we will study about protective discrimination versus principle of fairness. Protective discriminations. What is this? Inequality and injustice have been a part of all societies. Page number 141. Inequality and injustice. When there is demand of the equality and justice in each and every society, there is inequality and injustice prevail. And this inequality and injustice have been a part of all societies, and in India, we also find this concept. After the departure of the British in India, the framers of the Indian Constitution acknowledged the gravity of the problem and decided to introduce protective discriminations as a measure to eradicate malpractices like caste system. Accordingly, the Constitution of the India has provided various institutional avenues of social welfare for the weaker sections of the society. These protective discriminations involve the deliberate act of preferential treatment. Some special preferences like reservation policy or some special goods and services will be provided at weaker sections of the society. So protective discrimination involves the deliberate act of preferential treatment by state in favor of particular group of people based on caste, religion, gender, and even spectral location. So the principle of the protective discrimination is also known as reservation. Reservation, reverse discrimination, positive or affirmative action, preferential treatment, etc. The debate between the protective discriminations and the principle of the fairness. If there is protective discrimination means some special treatment that we provided to certain sections of the society, is there any fairness principle? So the debate between the protective discrimination and the principle of the fairness is a part of the overall relationship between equality and justice. Overall relationship between equality and justice. Those, those aspects have been discussed in the following sections. So the concept of protective discrimination, what is this? Concept of protective discrimination. The term protective discrimination refers to policy measures that are consciously designed by states to discriminate among the citizens by certain specified criteria to protect the interest of weakest among them. It is a policy through which special privileges are granted to the unprivileged section of society. Those who in the past or in the present have been the victim of any discrimination. These are affirmative action programs undertaken by state to bring equity and justice among all sections of society. These provisions together from the framework for the analysis of the concept of social justice in Indian context. It aims to reduce the persistent discrimination or inequality in society by giving some preferential treatment to the marginalized section in the distribution of the values, social goods, and opportunities. The main agenda for introducing protective discrimination is to protect the weaker sections of society who have been socially and historically neglected and exploited, and to free the disadvantaged sections of society from the hegemony of the powerful and resourceful by way of creating ample opportunities for their participation in the national mainstream. So, ideally, the state regards all citizens as equal in the eyes of law and treats them equally. However, a modern liberal state has recognized the necessity and avenues for a differentiated treatment among its citizens by their socio-economic background. If a significant part of population of a nation is plagued by discriminatory social practices and such an affiliation has hampered their rights to a dignified life and primary access to the state resources, then that part of the population is considered fit for being treated preferentially. To remedy the situation and compensate for the past injuries perpetuated against the disadvantaged group, preferential treatment in favor of this group is sought to be provided by a state agency. In India, despite the abolition under Article 17 of Constitution, discrimination against the lower caste still exists in various subtle and uncontrolled way. To reform and regenerate the society from these social evils, certain definite and bold measures for the, eradication of all these social maladies, all these social evils had become the need of our. According to some scholars, following are arguments in favor of protective discrimination. First argument, equality of opportunity in very people which does not exist unless made more effective. There is a causal relationship between being unequal and hence more illiterate and socially and culturally backward. Any system of allocation of goods and services will fall short of equality of opportunity and will be unfair if allocation work out unequally between different sections of society. And last, protective discrimination is one of the various means to correct such imbalances in distribution of the goods and services and does not violate the principle of fairness. It should not be violate the principle of fairness. Democracy becomes meaningless without transforming the vertical inequality into horizontal inequality. The social and economic gap between the upper caste and lower caste was strikingly high at the time of independence. During the freedom movement, the leaders understood the political logics of inducing its large group of the people into political mainstream who were otherwise outcast from the mainstream of the society. They recognized that without the inclusion and mobilization of these people, the realization of a broad-based inclusive national movement would not be possible. One of the main concerns of the founding fathers of the Indian Constitution was to create an egalitarian society where justice, social, economic, and political prevails and equality of status and opportunity is made available to all. It is not therefore surprising to find the spirit of equality revealing the provisions of the Constitution of the India. The Constitution guaranteed the fundamental rights of equality to all citizens before law, and it also categorically laid down that nothing in the Constitution shall prevent the state from making any special provision for the advancement of any socially and educationally backward classes of citizens or the scheduled caste and scheduled tribes. The state is empowered to make special measures for the betterment and welfare of the disadvantaged sections of the society. So, the policy of reservation or the positive discrimination stand, at least in the short run, at an integral part of the process of socio-economic changes, integration and development of India. Some of these provisions are combined or contained in Article 15 and 16, that is right to equality. Article 46, promotion of educational and economic interest of the scheduled caste and scheduled tribe and other weaker sections. And Article 340, welfare of other backward classes. The main areas where the state has pursued this policy of protective discrimination are education, welfare and economic activities like housing, grant and land, etc., grant of land, etc., public services and political reservations, except concerning the political representations, provisions of which are mandatory in all other aspects. The Constitution has left it to the discretion of the state to provide for the protective discriminations. It is up to state of what type of the protective discrimination policy it has to be taken or maintained. Then principle of fairness and principle of fairness, page number 144. Before moving on to understand the principle of the fairness, let us first confirm what Rawls' theory of justice is about, on which the principle of the fairness is premised. Justice as fairness refers to the conception of justice that John Rawls presents in his book A Theory of Justice. The book's Theory of Justice was written by John Locke. According to Rawls, certain moral principles are binding upon us. Some moral principles are binding upon us. According to Rawls, certain moral principles are binding upon us because they would be acceptable by a rational being like us in the original position. Justice for him is not the law of nature or something based on reason. What is justice according to John Rawls? Justice is not the laws of nature or something based on reason, but is a fair distribution on a fair procedure. If there is fair distribution of goods and services on a fair manner, then justice will be withheld. Rawls maintains that in society all individuals do not have equal knowledge and do not live in similar economic and social conditions. He refers to his idea of hills of ignorance, where some people are subject to, and these hills exclude them not only from others but also from themselves. से ता से अन्य कहा बाबत रे से पर्सन को किछि नॉलेज नाही ता बाबत रे ताको किछि नॉलेज नाही, दैट इज हिल ऑफ इग्नोरेंस, से पूरा पूरी भाबरे अज्ञ हे करी अछि. The least advantageous member of society. Thus, justice demands due care for the least advantageous members of society as well. So, justice according to Rawls is the distribution of the benefits among all members of society, not in proportions to what one does, but in such a manner that the weakest of the weak benefited. Rawls feels such a distribution of the benefit is not only fair, but also in accordance with the norms of justice. Thus, we can conclude that justice for Rawls is fairness. Justice as fairness assumes a view of society where there is a fair system of cooperation between free and equal persons. The object of justice as fairness is to find out appropriate principles which help in the realization of the liberty and equality. These appropriate principles that attempts to seek liberty and equality are the result of an agreement among the people concerned of their mutual advantages. When the people become free and equal, they soon realize that they need the same primary goods to pursue their conception of goods. The primary goods includes, among other things, the basic rights, liberties, opportunities, income, wealth, self-respect, etc. Thus, justice should mean that all the primary goods are to be distributed equally unless an equal distribution of any or all of these goods is to advantages the least favored section. This conception of justice concerns society's basic structure, that is, society's main political, constitutional, social, and economic institutions, and how they fit together to form a unified scheme of social cooperation over time. According to Rawls, the fundamental idea is the concept of justice is fairness, and he considered justice only as a virtue of social institutions, or what he calls practices. The principle of justice are regarded as formulating restriction as to how practices may be defined position and offices and assign to it powers and liabilities, rights and duties. So the principle of the fairness on the other hand states that if a number of people are producing a public good that we benefit from it, it is not morally acceptable to accept free goods without service or enjoying the benefits without paying the cost. We owe them our fair share of the cost of the production of that good. Initially, the principle of the fairness has been formulated by H.N.A. Patel and then by John Rawls to ground a principle-based understanding of the distribution of the burdens and benefits regarding the production of the public goods in a fair scheme of cooperation. That would be fair scheme of cooperation. All these are principles of the fairness. Then protective discrimination versus principle of fairness. Protective discrimination versus principle of the fairness. ଯଦି protective discrimination principle ରେ ଯଦି ଆମେ କାହାକୁ କିଛି special treatment ଦିଆଗଲା ସେଟା principle of the fairness କୁ affect କରୁଛି କି ନାହିଁ is it the principle of the fairness or not. Talking about equality, we do not talk of legal equality here only in the sense of equality of opportunity but also equality of condition and equality of outcome of results. Since the son of a doctor and the son of a poor man may not get equal opportunities, justice and fairness demands that the social environment must be changed if equal start for everyone is to be provided. However, for that, we need collective consent and decision to give favor treatment to the deprived and marginalized section of society. In addition to that, equality before law and equal protection law, equality before law and equal protection of law mandate that everyone should not be treated in like. Formal versus substantive equality. Formal equality refers to the liberal notion of equality before law. It involves the principle of the universality where two persons are treated equally unless there is a differentiating principles. According to Lucas, the need for universality of laws arises from the fact that the state is unable to make many laws as there are individuals because they are different. So for practical reasons, the state makes universally applicable laws. This means formal equality can provide only procedural justice. On the other hand, substantive equality is a broader concept which also relates to other values like justice, rights, and equality. According to Friedman, there are four approaches to substantive equality. First, equality of results. Equal treatment does not guarantee equalities of results. Equal treatment does not guarantee equalities of results. And then, starting point equality. True equality is unachievable if individuals begin the race from different starting points and an equal opportunities approach therefore aim at equalize the starting point. Right-based equality. It treats equality as auxiliary to substantive right. Value-driven approach. This approach emphasizes dignity, autonomy, and worth of all individuals apart from their fair participation in society. Although through legal equality, equality of opportunity has been achieved in India, eradication or reduction of economic and social inequalities prevalent in society is yet to be accomplished. The hegemony of the superpowers, the hegemonies of the upper caste in gaining access to the resources of the state for centuries has created an extremely asymmetrical society that affects the compositeness of the whole society, since there are wide disparities in political as well as social system. In this situation, the empowered and powerful section of society moreover wish to continue with the status quo and may resist any changes in the existing distributive pattern. The deprived and marginalized one, on the other hand, may want to complete revolutions in the social system and aspire for drastic measures by state to ameliorate their social and economic position. Thus, both groups face their demands and put pressure on the state agency to get them fulfilled, which puts the state in a quandary. This kind of situation leads to the emergence of a pertinent question as to what is to be prioritized. Priority should be given to whom? Liberty or justice. However, in most cases, when the empowered groups work for liberty, justice becomes a matter of the survival for the marginalized and deprived section of society. Only at the time, justice is a matter of survival to survive the marginalized or deprived section of society. Thus, the practice of protective discrimination was introduced to uplift the condition of the deprived section, to raise the condition of underprivileged sections, to bring them at par with the mainstream of society, to raise their standard high. This policy of affirmative action is to be called reverse discrimination because it guarantees the differential treatment of certain deprived sections, just as overtly as it was used or discriminated against them in past. However, this practice of giving preferential treatment to certain number of the marginalized groups has generated a Paris philosophical debate in the contemporary political theory. While the egalitarians and positive liberals are in support of such discrimination because it helps to achieve a just and free society. The liberties and legal positivists express their displeasure with some discrimination. According to them, it affects the excellence, merit of the overall quality and also the basic rights of freedom and properties of individuals. Taking into consideration the economic and social reality of a country like India, the idea of affirmative action still holds the grounds for delivery of social justice and the consequent full realization of democracy. It is important to remember that the concept of justice and equality are not opposing one. The concept of justice and equality are not opposing one. If the claims of justice and equality do not clash with one another. The practice of providing preferential treatment to those who were discriminated and denied of basic facilities for centuries does not in any sense stand against the principle of justice. Rather, such preferential treatment essentially seeks to build the properties and environment of justice. Justice consists in the rightful allocation of the benefits and burden. Equality would be meaningful only when it is accomplished or when it is accompanied by a sense of justice. Equality would be meaningful only when it is accompanied by a sense of justice. The exercise of granting and providing social justice to the needy ones leads to strengthening of the claims of equality as it strives to bring unequal hitherto on parity with the two days equal. Quite a few scholars have finally articulated some important arguments relating to the debates. To provide equal opportunities to the people is something which is always appreciated and in no way does it deny the principle of the fairness to that extent. Such claim of equality is not opposed to the claim of justice. The idea of protective discrimination is described as the idea of correcting a wrong done against the weaker and marginalized section of society. The basic idea is to seek compensation for the injustice carried out by one's father. However, the idea of compensating for decades without any definite indications of the culminating period presents an unfair situation to many. Another debate circulating the practice of protective discrimination is that it essentially leads towards increasing the function and jurisdiction of the state, which in turn restricts the liberties and rights of the people in general and the empowered in particular. Then our next unit, family, law and state. Family, law and state. Page number 149. Family and state share a complex relationship as the boundaries between the two are not clearly defined, leading to the confusion and confusion. For instance, in case the family responsibility is not met, the state may intervene. The individual in a happy families are likely to be a good citizen. The individual in a happy family are likely to be a good citizen, whereas unhappy dysfunctional families can be a catalytic for many social problems which may arise several types of the problems, and this secures instability or disturbances. State interest is fostering good citizenship. The main aim of the state is to create good citizens, promoting individual happiness, encouraging social stability, and preventing a drastic increase in the social problems, gives in an incentive to foster ideal families. But this is not a one-way relationship as families can affect how the state behaves as well as being on the receiving end of its action. Jean-Jacques Rousseau saw an important role of the families in making good citizens and argued that to be good citizens capable of participating effectively in self-government, the family must provide future citizens with certain tools in childhood. The type of a state also impacts the state family relationship. Totalitarian states tend to isolate families and destroy natural communities that might foster competing loyalties between states. Democracy, on the other hand, see a family as a training ground for preparing good citizens. American linguistic George Lakoff has argued that people with a right-wing ideology have a families based on the values of particular of patriarchy and morality. For the learning people, the idea is a family based on unconstitutional law. Let us study the concept of state and family before we explore the relationship between them. First, we will study what is state, then what is family, then the relationship between state and family. Now, the concept of state. Defining the term state, it is an assembly of the people organizing in a definite territory with some rules and the regulation and with a certain form of the government, that is term as state. Defining the term state is not easy as there is no general agreement on its definition. It must first be noted that there are various forms of state which differ from one another in important ways. The Greek city state is clearly different from modern nation state, which was dominated world politics since the French Revolution. The contemporary liberal democratic state which exist in Britain and Western Europe is different from the fascist type state of the Hitler or Mussolini. It is also different from the state which exist in the former USSR and in Eastern Europe. There are different forms of state, but whatever form one has in mind, the state as such is not a monolithic block. To start with, the state is not the same as the government. It is rather a complex of various elements of which the government is only one. In Western type liberal democratic state, those who form government are indeed with the state power. They speak in the name of the state and take office in order to control the levers of the state power. Nevertheless, to change the metaphor, the house of the state has many mentions of these. The government occupies the one. One needs to understand that the state is different from the civil society and nation. The state represents the coercive power. The state has coercive power, but civil society don't have. The civil society is based on the voluntary participation of the people. A nation could be defined as community feelings among the people who feel they are distinct from other communities and wish to control their own affairs. The distinction could be based on common religion, language, their affairs. The distinction could be based on common religion, language, etc. When the entire population share this feeling, common language, common culture, etc., we have that is called a nation state. However, this is not the case with all the states, and that is why the state and nation may not coincide. For example, the Kurdish people spread across Iran, Syria, Iraq, Turkey consider themselves to be nations. There are four elements of a state, namely population, territory, government, and sovereignty. The idea of the state has been treated differently by different peoples. Some glorify it and some reject it, while others seek to restrict its roles and functions. Hegel called the state as a march of God on earth. March of God on earth. Plato talked of his ideal states in his book The Republic. Aristotle argued that man was a man only because he has a member of police which made virtuous and good life possible. The Greek idea corresponds more accurately to the modern concept of a nation, that is a population of a fixed area that share a common language, culture, and history. Whereas the Romans Republica of Commonwealth Roman relies publica or the Commonwealth is more similar to the modern concept of state. It was not until 16th century that modern concept of state emerged. In the writings of the Niccolo Machiavelli in Italy and Jean Bodin from the France. For Niccolo Machiavelli, state is the power, authority over man. It is the power or authority over man. He gave more importance to strength and durability of the government, sweeping aside all moral considerations. However, for Bodin, his contemporary power was not sufficient in itself to create a sovereign rule must comply with the morality to be durable, and it must have continuity, that is means of establishing successions. Thomas Hobbes, John Locke, Jean-Jacques Rousseau explained the state as a region of social contract, which is an agreement between the ruler and the ruled, defining the rights and duties of each in primitive time. According to this theory, the individual is born in an anarchic state or state of nature. The individual were in a state of nature which was happy or unhappy according to the particular version. Okay. They then by exercising mutual reasons form a society. Usually, due to their problems, they could form a society and a government by means of a contract among themselves. That is the social contract theory of Hobbes, Locke, and Rousseau. In the 20th century, the concept of the state ranged from anarchism, in which the state was deemed unnecessary and even harmful, in that it operated by some form of coercions, to the welfare state in which the government was held to be responsible for the survival of its members, granting substance to those lacking in it. Modern state is identified as a nation state. The state has come to acquire its present character through a historical process that extends to thousands of years. It is interplay of various factors like religion, kinship, war, property, political consciousness, and technological advancements. In the process of historical evolution of the state, there have been following forms. First, There are tribal states, then Oriental Empire, Greek city-state, Roman wall empire, feudal state, then modern nation state. The modern nation state arose after the Treaty of the Westphalia, which was signed in 1648. It led to the emergence of the territorial state consolidating political authority within a particular territory, excluding domestic from external. The separation of the territory into the distinct states, each with their own national spirit, paved the way for the establishment of a modern state along the rise of international law, legal equality of the state, and modern theory of the sovereignty. From the Treaty of the Westphalia, the concept of the sovereignty emerged. The American and the France revolutions further contributed to the emergence of nation state. The modern concept of state The modern concept of state is dominated by liberals and Marxist perspective. The liberal perspective is dynamic and it is changed with the time, depending on the interest and needs of the individual and society. The needs of the individuals and society. The early liberal views of the state were negative, and it favored non-interference of the state in individual matter. The state is free to do whatever it likes because man is a rational individual. He knows what is best for him or her and what is worst for him or her. However, 20th century liberalism is associated with the welfare state, which tries to reconcile individuals' liberty with social good. Contemporary discourse on the state is influenced by new liberalism, wherein the state is supposed to play a minimum role. The state has minimum role. The state is supposed to perform minimum role, and primacy is attached to market forces, and importance is provided to the market forces. The Marxist notion rejects the ideas of state and calling the state as an instrument of class and seeks to establish a classless and a stateless society through the proletarian revolution, However, that it did not happen after the Russian Revolution in Russia, and instead of a classless and stateless society developed in Russia. We saw power getting concentrated in the hands of a few during Soviet times. On the other perspective, that is feminist perspective on the state, can be mainly seen from two angles. One is liberal, another radical. Liberal feminists say that the state can play a role among men and women. The state will perform certain roles to bring equality among men and women. Taking steps like increasing seats in the parliament, extending welfare schemes to the women, etc. However, the radical sees that state is an instrument of power and blame unequal distribution of the labor in its country.
वीडियो दिसुनी टिके देखिए वीडियो ऑन करंतु ठीक अछि
However, radical see the state is an instrument of the power and blame unequal distribution of labor in a family for women unequal status in society. Hence, they contest the liberal view that the state is impartial and neutral. Then we'll study the concept of family. Page number 151, the concept of family. Okay. The family is the basic and most important primary group in a society. It is the basic of state. The family is an institution is seen as universal, permanent, and permissive. It is a universal institution and it is a permanent institution. All society, both large and small, primitive and civilized, ancient and modern, have some form of family or the other. The family is a social group consisting ordinarily of the father, mother, one or more children, and sometimes millions of the distant relatives. The meaning of family can be explained better by the following definition. According to Elliot and Mill, The biological social unit for most of households, that is wife and children relationship. Brothers and law, friends, only as a group of persons united by ties of marriage, blood or adoption of constituting of a single household, interacting, intercommunicating with each other in their respective social rules of husband and wife, father and mother, son and daughter, brother and sister, creating a common culture. According to Ross, for substructure of the family can be identified. First, ecological substructure. First, ecological substructure. That is the mental element of a family.
Hello.
के वेट करंतु
Hello. Am I audible?
हाँ मैडम
हाँ. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, okay. According to Ross, four substructure of family can be identified. There are four substructure of a family. First, ecological substructure. Ecological substructure. That is the sectoral arrangement of family members and their household. Then substructure of rights and duties, that is division of labor within the household. Substructure of power and authority, that is control over the actions of others, and substructure of sentiment, that is relationship between different sets of members. Family has a number of functions which are described in the subsequent paragraph. Then family is a basic social unit. Family is a basic social unit. Reproduction is essential to the survival of human as a whole, or the survival of the human civilization as a whole. And all society must have a way of replacing their members. Family regulates the behavior of man and as the institution of marriage. The process of reproduction is institutionalized in family. The family is
मैडम ऑडियो।
now it is clear.
हाँ, यस।
The family introduces legitimacy into the art of reproduction by fulfilling its reproductive function. Family has made it possible to have the propagation of sex and the participation of human race. Family is an institution which provides the mental or the emotional satisfaction and security of individual members.
यूट्यूब तो बहुत है।
The individual must express affection in his parental family. As parents and siblings offer him love, sympathy, and affection.
विशेष काना को
Family,
टाणी के देखी काना कंटेंट अछि डाउनलोड करिबो कले त
Excuse me, ma'am.
the family also performs a pair of functions. The state expression of the individual and future identification of other individuals. The family provides the aspect status, ethnic, nationality, religion, residential, class, status, and sometimes
Ma'am, your
political
video and voice both are not clear.
Yes,
Ma'am, your video and voice both are not clear.
which point is not clear?
Sorry?
Which point is not clear?
I can't understand you. Your voice is not clear.
Oh, my voice is not clear. Okay. Now, am I audible? Am I audible?
No, ma'am, it is the same. It is not clear. Your video is also not your video is also not available, and your voice is not clear.
There is no problem here.
मैडम वीडियो को ऑफ कर दियंतु ऑडियो था थिवा को दियंतु लेट्स सी इफ इट्स वर्किंग।
Now, is it okay? Now, I am audible?
यस यस कंटिन्यू।
Okay. The family as basic social unit. Reproduction is essential to survival of humans as a whole, and all society must have a way of replacing their members. Family regulates the sexual behavior of men by consent, the institution of marriage. The process of reproduction is institutionalized in a family. The family introduces legitimacy into the acts of reproduction. By fulfilling its reproductive function, family has made it possible to have the propagation of species and perpetuation of the human race, develop the human race. Family is an institution which provides the mental or the emotional satisfaction and security of its individual members. The individual first experiences affection in his parental family as parents and siblings offers him love, sympathy, and affection. Okay. The family also performs a pair of functions, status acquisition for the individual and the social identification for the individual. It provides some social identity to a individual. The family provides the aspect status, ethnic, nationality, religious, residential, class status, and sometimes political and educational status are all conferred upon an individual by the family. Okay. Then family is an agent of socialization. It's an agent of socialization. It socializes the people. The family serves as an instrument of cultural transmission in an individual. The family guarantees not only the biological continuity of human race, but also the cultural continuity of the society of which it is a part. It transmits ideas and ideologies, purpose and moods, customs and traditions, beliefs and values from one generation to the next. The family is an agent of socialization as well. Socialization is the process whereby one internalizes the norms of one's group so that a distinct self emerges unique to individual. The family, the family in family that the child with the values. It provides the qualities, so some types of the moral qualities, and it provides certain types of the beliefs and ideas and values to the child. It prepares its children for the participation in the larger world and influence them to the larger culture. It is a key agency which prepares the new generation for life in community. The next, family is the seabed of democracy. It is a seabed of democracy. Family is the seabed of democracy. Home is the place where an individual gets first ideas about himself, develops attitude towards other people, and also the habit of approaching and solving problems. It is at a time that children learn lessons about of cooperation, commitment, sharing, sacrifice, and obedience from the family, which from the foundations of the self-government. Children learn from the parents to adapt to shortages, to adjust themselves, care for others, and be happy, fulfill one's duties, and learn critical citizenship and social skills of mutual respect and cooperation. The interconnectedness of our lives with government, especially self-government, is the first learned at home. The home is the most important learning institution in a democracy. Family is a primary agent of political socialization, where the children inherit political attitudes, ideologies, and orientations, which have a considerable, long-lasting impact on them. It is likely that in the initial years, their voting behavior is an extension of their voting patterns of the family members. Okay. Then, an agent of the informal social control. Family is an agent of informal social control. The family has always provided a strong means of social control. Parents provide children with direct guidelines to follow regarding acceptable behavior. Social control for the family is achieved by both positive and negative means, with children keen to gain praise for their parents while wanting to avoid punishment in any form for disobedience. According to social control theory, those who are socially integrated are more likely to engage in socially accepted behavior and less likely to engage in risky behavior. In this way, social integration offered by the family unit helps to encourage socially accepted behavior. It helps to accept the socially accepted behavior. Then, family and state, a relationship in a political theory. That is, a relationship between family and state in political theory. The family-state relationship in political science has been a understudied subject because of the general belief that family is a private matter of an individual and the state should stay away from it. There has been a debate over the state intervention in family matters. Those who support state intervention believe that family is a public and political entity and the state should have a say in its management. On the contrary, others believe that family is a private and a political institution which should be run by a family member and not the state. In this context, let us study the main prospects pertaining to this debate in a political theory. Traditional or Greek view about the relationship between family and state. In ancient Greece, the wide-held belief was that the family is a private institution and the state should not intervene in it. The state should not interfere in the private affairs. Plato held a contrary view and placed the institution of family at the mercy of the state. Plato advocated collective nurture of the children, education and ownership in his book The Republic. He believed that the private property and family are the source of all evil and the corruption in the state. So he said that there is communism of the wife and family. Feelings of compensation and ownership towards the family term meant into a selfish being, and these feelings lessen commitments to the state. So Plato saw unity between the individual, family and the state with no distinction between self and other. So he argued for communism of wives and property, where marriage and private property would be abolished and would not be recognized by the ideal state of Plato. However, Plato seems to put no restriction on the state, as it could even intervene in the family matters, and he also lacked sensitivity towards females, as they were treated merely as resistant and passive subjects under the state. Plato's disciples Aristotle did not agree with him and argued for a case where the state should respect the institution of the family, giving a celebrated defense of marriage, the family, and the household in his book, The Politics. He argued that there is a natural progress of the individual from the family to police through small communities. A household, according to him, consists of family, property, and slaves. He said that family is a cradle of virtues and property. Is an essential and property is an essential feature of household. Ownership of property gives a sense of security to an individual who seeks to increase his wealth. Aristotle defended the institution of the family. He supported the institution of family and the property. He never abolished family and the property from his ideal state. So he defended the institution of family and private property on the basis of the necessity of development of individual moral virtue, which is necessary to the well-being of the state. He viewed family as a sanctioned private affair and placed it in the personal arena. However, Aristotle believed in the superiority of the male over female. There is no equality between male and female in the family, and also did not give the due regard to the rights of slaves. And they were under the command of the master. The slaves were under the command of the master. The next view, Marxist view, page number 155. Marxism offers a conflict perspective in terms of social conflict and inequality. when explaining the family-state relationship. Marxist theory of the family focused on how the capitalist system, which maintains an explosive relationship between capitalists and workers, it shapes other social institutions such as the family, which in turn helps consolidate the capitalist system. Family is seen as aiding capitalism by serving as a congestion unit. Marxists also believe that the nuclear family is a tool of the ruling class, an institution used to teach its members to submit to ruling class authority. Friedrich Engels argued that the three institutions of the private property, family, and the state are connected, and that family relations develop in response to property relations. In its work, The Origin of the Family, Private Property and the State, published in the year 1884, he stresses the origin of the family and to link its evaluation to the changes in the mode of production and emergence of private property and capitalism. Engels believes that during the early stages of the human evolution, property was collectively owned. Property was collectively owned, and that family as such did not exist. The community itself formed the family, and there was no limitation of sexual access. However, with the emergence of private ownership of property and the idea of having heirs who were to inherit the property, the question of the paternity grew in importance, and the rules of monogamous marriage were created to control human sexuality and assure the legitimacy of the family. Marx and Engels also criticized the superficial distinction between the public and private sphere by liberals. So Marx said that the state does not stay away from the private sphere, it is family, and it reproduces the contradiction in the family. Then liberal perspective. The idea of the public and private distinction can be seen in the liberal perspective. Isaac Berlin in his book, in his essay, Two Concepts of Liberty, said a frontier must be drawn, a line must be drawn between the area of the private life and that of public authority. The public-private distinction has European origin, which signifies the division of sovereign rights. Public belongs to the state, which private belongs to the individual. Public aspect honor belongs to the state, while private aspect belongs to the individual. So classical liberal theories continue to treat family as a natural, biological, and personal unit. They claim that the family is composed of individuals who enter the institution through their free will, and the state must not interfere in the institution. So John Locke had argued that family starts due to voluntary consent between the man and woman, and state interference should be avoided. John Rawls says that family is one of the social institutions to be evaluated by the theory of justice. But for him, the traditional family is just and remains on the fringe of the theory of the justice. James Mill recognized a link between the virtue and good politics. James Mill said the families are a training ground for democratic citizenship. The training ground for the democratic citizenship. They must reflect the values of equality and justice on which a democracy is based. He therefore condemns the inequality of the women in current family structure as inhibiting the development of the children's democratic structure. But even he justified the sexual division of the labor within the family as it is based on the concept of general custom. Now we will discuss about feminist perspective. Feminist perspective. Feminists have sought to analyze the impact of family life on women. Despite the numerous differences in their approach and main concerns, the different feminists tend to agree that women occupy a subordinate position in the family. women occupy a subordinate position, inferior position in compared to the male in a family and are exploited in various ways. The Marxist feminists consider capitalism as a man exploiter. This exploitation is seen in terms of the unpaid work they carry out at home. Like the Marxists, they believe that the family also serves capitalism by reproducing the future labor force. But they also assert that it is not the family as such that suffers more, but the woman. It is the women that bear the children and assume the men's responsibility for their care. Women are also exploited in that they are expected to provide outlets for all the frustration and anger in their sustained experiences at work and therefore prevent them from rebuilding against their employees. So radical feminists agree with other feminists about the advantages that women suffer in families, yet they do not consider capitalism as a main source of exploitation. Their focus is on men and their patriarchal nature of society. They argue that inequalities between partners at home are a result of the fact that most of the heads of the household are men. This implies that men have more decision-making power and consume more of whatever the family has and retain control over finances. So J.S. Mill has famously said, an egalitarian family is a much more fertile ground for equal citizenship than one organized like a school of despotism. So, Krohn and Yalom argues that feminism has contributed a number of the broad themes to the understanding of family. First, the feminists have challenged the ideology of a monolithic family, which has elevated the nuclear family with a breadwinner husband and full-time wife and a mother as the only legitimate form. Feminists have recognized the structure of gender and generation, race and class result in widely different extensions of family life, which are obscured by the glorification of the nuclear family. Motherhood and the family agent of the huge. Feminism has challenged traditional dichotomies between private, public, raising question about family boundaries and showing that family isolation is in part illusionary. Given the close connection between the internal life of families and the organization of paid work, state organized welfare and legal systems, schools, child care and other institutions. That is why in 1970 the main slogan of women's movement was the personal is the political. That's all. That's all. Am I listening? Hello?
Yes, ma'am.
Please, any doubts?
No, ma'am.
Now, am I visible?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And now I will talk about certain probable questions. Random question, probable question. Analyze about J.S. Mill concept of liberty. Analyze about J.S. Mill concept of liberty. Analyze about J.S. Mill concept of liberty. Lecture.
Author, ma'am.
Analyze about, analyze about, JS means, JS means concept of liberty.
Ma'am, can you please repeat? I didn't heard it.
Analyze about, analyze about, analyze about JS means concept of liberty. Alexander,
Yes, ma'am.
ভিডিওটা অফ করে দিন তো ম্যাডাম।
শোনা যাবে? হ্যালো, শোনা যাଉଛି କି ଶୁଣା ଯାଉନି?
ଶୁଭା ଯାଉଛି ମ୍ୟାମ୍।
Next question, write down. What is censorship? What is censorship?
Sorry, ma'am. What is?
What is censorship?
Yes, ma'am.
Give a brief account of, give a brief account of relationship between give a brief account of relationship between liberty and censorship. ଦେଖିସାରିଲ?
Yes, ma'am.
What is censorship? Question mark. And in the same question, give a brief account of relationship between liberty and censorship. Okay. Then next question from protective discriminations. Write down. Write down the next question.
Ma'am.
Protective discrimination is one of various means. Protective discrimination is one of various means to
Ma'am, repeat again, ma'am.
protective discrimination. Protective discrimination is one of various means.
One of
Various means to correct the imbalance. To correct the imbalance.
नहीं हेलो मैम बोलते शुरू नहीं
What is the problem? Any problem?
ଭଏସ ଶୁଭୁ ନାହିଁ ଆପଣଙ୍କର
What is the problem? Write down the next question. I am saying.
Ma'am, your voice is not clear. Please repeat. The protective discrimination is one of.
Protective discrimination is one of various means. One of various means to correct the imbalance.
Hey.
To correct the imbalance in distribution of goods and services.
To correct the imbalance.
Correct the imbalance letter.
Yes, ma'am.
correct the imbalance then? Hello.
मैं एक्ट ही गई
Ma'am, your voice is not clear. Ma'am,
Ma'am is
please.
not available.
So dear learners, do you hear me? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So all right, your BPSC 131 class is over, and I am sure you people have learnt a lot of things from your political science paper 131, and from tomorrow onwards for next 6 sessions, it will be devoted for your PECC, that means economics paper 131. Okay? Okay, best of luck. Bye.
Thank you,
Thank you,
sir.
sir.
Welcome, welcome.
Sir. Hello.
Hello? Hello?
Sir,
Any
question
question?
guda lekhi
Huh?
Hello.
Sir.
Sir,
Excuse
probable
me.
question guda lekhi helani.
Assignment question?
No, sir. Sir, ma'am जो କହୁଥିଲେ ଅଧାରୁ ଛାଡ଼ିଲେ ସେଇ କଥା ପଚାରୁଛୁ।
କୋଉ ବିଷୟରେ?
Political
Probable
science.
question guda.
ମ୍ୟାଡ଼ାମ ଦେଲେ ପରା ପ୍ରୋବାବଲ, ତାଙ୍କର ଆଜି ଟିକେ ନେଟ୍ ପ୍ରୋବ୍ଲେମ ଅଛି, ଆଜି ତାଙ୍କ ରେସିଡେନ୍ସ କଭର କରୁଛନ୍ତି, ସେ ଆମ ପାଖରେ ନାହାନ୍ତି ଆଜି।
मैम को वॉइस ठीक से सुना गलानी तो सेति में lekhi helani.
ତାଙ୍କ ନେଟ୍ ଟିକେ ପ୍ରୋବ୍ଲେମ ଅଛି, ତାଙ୍କ ରେସିଡେନ୍ସରେ ନେଟ୍ ଟିକେ ପ୍ରୋବ୍ଲେମ ଅଛି।
ତାହେଲେ ଯାହା କ୍ୱେଶ୍ଚନ ରହିଯାଇଛି ସେଟା କେମିତି ଲେଖା
ଶୁଣ
ହବ?
ଶୁଣ ଶୁଣ ମୁଁ ତମକୁ କହିଦଉଛି, ତମେ ମ୍ୟାମଙ୍କର ଟେଲିଫୋନ ନମ୍ବର ତମ ପାଖରେ ଅଛି?
ୟେସ୍ ସାର୍ ଅଛି।
Yes, sir.
ହଁ, ତମେ ମ୍ୟାମକୁ ଥରେ କଣ୍ଟାକ୍ଟ କରିଦେବ, ସେ ତାଙ୍କ ହ୍ୱାଟ୍ସଆପରେ ସେଗୁଡ଼ା ତମ ପାଖକୁ ପଠେଇଦେବେ ହେଲା।
ଓକେ ଥ୍ୟାଙ୍କ ୟୁ ସାର୍।
Okay, sir.
Sir, group ରେ ପଠେଇଦେଲେ ଭଲ ହୁଅନ୍ତା।
ହାଁ ଗ୍ରୁପ ଆକ୍ଚୁଆଲି ଗ୍ରୁପ ଆମ କଲେଜର ଆମେ ଗ୍ରୁପ ଖାଲି ଆମ ଷ୍ଟଡି ସେଣ୍ଟର ଗ୍ରୁପ ଆମେ କରିଛୁ, ସାରା ଓଡ଼ିଶାର ଗ୍ରୁପରେ କରାହେଇନି। ଠିକ ଅଛି, ଆମ କଲେଜ ଗ୍ରୁପରେ ବି ଆମେ ଛାଡ଼ି ଦେଇ ପାରିବୁ, ନୋ ପ୍ରୋବ୍ଲେମ।
ସାର୍ ତାହେଲେ ଆପଣ
କଲେଜ
ସେ
ଗ୍ରୁପ
କଲେଜ ଗ୍ରୁପ ନମ୍ବରଟା ଦେଇ ଦିଅନ୍ତୁ।
ହାଁ ମ୍ୟାଡମଙ୍କର ମ୍ୟାଡମଙ୍କ
ସାର୍
ନମ୍ବର
ଶୁଣନ୍ତୁ ସାର୍, ସାର୍ ଆପଣଙ୍କ କଲେଜ ଗ୍ରୁପର ଲିଙ୍କଟା ଟିକେ ଆମ ଡେସ୍କ୍ରିପସନ ବକ୍ସରେ ସେଣ୍ଡ କରିଦିଅନ୍ତୁ, ଆମେ ଜଏନ୍ ହେଇଯିବୁ।
कौन कौच को
ଆପଣଙ୍କର କଲେଜ ଗ୍ରୁପ ଯୋଉ ହ୍ୱାଟ୍ସଆପ ଗ୍ରୁପ କରାହେଇଛି ତ ଆପଣଙ୍କର ନା କୋଉ ଗ୍ରୁପ କରାହେଇଛି?
ଆମର କଲେଜ ଗ୍ରୁପ BAG 2019 ମାରିଦେଲେ ଦେଖେଇବ
सर टेलीग्राम ना
ଟେଲିଗ୍ରାମ ନା କୋଉଟା ସେଣ୍ଡ କରାହେଇଛି?
ହ୍ୱାଟ୍ସଆପ ଗ୍ରୁପ କରାହେଇଛି ଟେଲିଗ୍ରାମ କରାହେଇଛି।
ହଉ ଶୁଣନ୍ତୁ ଆପଣଙ୍କର ସେଇ ଲିଙ୍କ ଟା ଟିକେ ଆମ ମେସେଜ ବକ୍ସ ରେ ଟିକେ ସେଣ୍ଡ କରିଦିଅନ୍ତୁ।
लिंक माने WhatsApp रे लिंक तो कितनी होता है
ହଁ ସେ ଗ୍ରୁପ ର ଲିଙ୍କ ସେ ଗ୍ରୁପ ର ଲିଙ୍କ ଟା
WhatsApp ग्रुप रो लिंक किछि न थाए
ଅଛି
के कहला
ଅଛି ସାର୍
WhatsApp ग्रुप रो लिंक अछि
ଅଛି
बोली
ସାର୍ ଆମେ ସାର୍
WhatsApp ग्रुप रो लिंक लिंक न थाए
ଆମେ ଆड
ତ
ହବୁ
ମୁଁ
ସାର୍ କେମିତି?
ने तमन को आड हमें करि परिबोनी ओनली आम सेंटर आमर स्टडी सेंटर रो पिला को हमें तांकर सुविधा पाई एठी गोटे ग्रुप करिछु सारा ओडिसा रो ग्रुप करबा आम काम न कि हमर ता पाई कोनसी इंस्ट्रक्शन नहीं हमें ऐड भी करि परिबोनी से मु सेले कहली तमे मैडम कांटेक्ट करले से पठै देबे।
ସାର୍ ସେଇଟା ତ ଠିକ କଥା କିନ୍ତୁ ମୁଁ ସୁନ୍ଦରଗଡ଼ ଡିଷ୍ଟ୍ରିକ୍ଟର ପ୍ରମିଳା ଏକା ମୋତେ ଜଏନ୍
नहीं
କରିବେ
तमे डिस्ट्रिक्ट जे आम स्टडी सेंटर रो की
ନାଇଁ ସାର୍ ରାଉରକେଲା।
ताले तमे ऐड ही परिबोनी आम ग्रुप रे दैट इज द
ଓକେ
प्रॉब्लम
ସାର୍
बुझुछ तमे मैडम को मु चाहिथिला कि प्रथम रो से जो हम शेड्यूल हेतिला प्रत्येक कोऑर्डिनेटर मानकर ये काउंसलर मानकर तांकर फोन नंबर भी दे देथिली so that learners can directly contact to the counselors हला
यस सर यस सर
तुम ता कांटेक्ट करो किछ असुविधा नहीं okay see you then for the economics group we'll start the class tomorrow same time okay best of luck bye
Okay, thank you, sir.
थैंक यू सर।